Hello and welcome, my name's Andy, and today I'm excited to introduce you to my 5 unique puppets and explain how they're made. Let's get started.
Designed to be alone on this crooked path past the sun. I was overlooked. I was done.
Query is an ornery mad scientist who's constantly questioning reality while simultaneously fighting off existential dread. So I didn't set out to make a puppet or to become a puppeteer. What I wanted a year and a half ago when I started this journey is I wanted a robot that could talk, because I wanted to make some kind of weird experimental YouTube videos with my poetry. I knew I wanted to do something weird. So when I first started designing Query and wanted to make him talk, I used a very common household item, which is a bag clip or a chip clip. And I have one from the same package right here. So it's just a clip that you use when you open food and you want it to not go stale, and you clip it on the bag. So ever since I was a little kid, I always, whenever I find anything with a hinge on it, I have to make it talk. And so when I had to make a talking robot, it was just kind of like an obvious answer to this problem was to use a bag clip. So Query himself is sculpted out of polymer clay. And this is the polymer clay that I currently use. It's super sculpey medium. It's just the kind that has become my favorite. He's actually made with a different one while I was experimenting. And polymer clay, if you've never used it, it just feels a lot like regular clay, but it's a synthetic clay that you can throw in your kitchen oven at not a very high temperature for 15 to 30 minutes, and it will harden, and you can paint it and you can do all kinds of things with it. So another thing that I use while making my puppets most of the time is wire. So you can see that there's wire wrapped around this bottom clip, and it's attached to this piece of chain right here, which is attached to another piece of wire that runs down the length of the body. And then there's more wire wrapped around the top part of the bag clip, and that goes up into his head and helps anchor it. And that piece of chain kind of lets his neck move around, makes him feel a little bit more lifelike. Here are some pictures of when I created Query. Polymer clay is supposed to be baked pretty thin, so Query's head and body are mostly foil, with a thin layer of clay over the foil. Here's the bag clip with wire spiraling up where his head will be. I use the twisted wire to secure the foil to the clip. Then I cover the foil with clay. Here are a couple pictures of his body. And here's what he looked like before I painted him. At some point I realized that I didn't just have a talking robot, I had a puppet, so I might as well have a way to move his arms around. So I just wrapped some wire around his wrists and made little arm rods.
Slide a rocks glass across the bar, filled to the brim with nostalgia and dusk.
Nostalgia is in love with life, constantly seeing the beauty of existence around him. My robots live in a world that is post-humanity, and nature has come back and covered everything. As you can see by his top hat, gloves, and tuxedo, Nostalgia is fascinated with the humans who made him. Nostalgia is made in a very similar manner to Query, but I designed some kind of fancy features when I was creating him. I wanted him to have a smaller mouth, so I used this smaller metal clip. Here's the same clip that I used. The first of Nostalgia's extra features is a removable top hat. So you can take the top hat off, and he kind of has a different mood and energy. And the top hat's just got a wire sticking up, and there's a hole in his head that the wire fits into. So then the hat just goes back on and stays on. So the next special feature that I designed for nostalgia was magnetic hands. So his hands come off because they're magnetic. Here are some of the magnets. I just bought some very strong magnets that are small, and at first I sculpted them into the hand and the wrist, but then the baking actually lowered the magnetism and ruined the magnets. They didn't really work very well. And so I had to dig out the ones that I sculpted in and then glue in different magnets for his hands to work. But now I have hands that I could turn around at different angles and rotate the wrist. And also, at some point, I could sculpt his hands holding something like a wine glass or a cane or something. And then I could swap out the hands for different scenes that he's in. Tread is a humble, quiet robot, but when he does speak, it's often profound. So Tread ended up being my most complicated design. He starts with, like the other ones, with this bag clip, like a chip clip mouth. So his head is kind of similar made. I gave him this kind of overbite, which was a little bit hard to make actually. It took me a while to get it right. And he's got these metal nut eyes. It's got the wire inside. And then to connect to his body, he just has this like, it's actually armature wire. So it's a thicker wire that can actually move around a little bit. You could see it there where it's breaking in the back. A lot of my puppets, they get nicked up and broken and have to repaint them and stuff. The body, it's got this caster wheel. This is the same. I got a few of these caster wheels from a junk shop traveling around. And so he can roll around, kind of like Rosie from the Jetsons, or a lot of different robot designs on like TV and movies and stuff. I have this thinner wire here. Tread is really built around my hand. These two fingers hook in here. Yeah, they allow me to steer him around a bit. And then the two arms are built around my fingers. So they're built around my forefinger and my thumb. And so yeah, I built them around my fingers so that I can do this. Even though he doesn't have legs, I mean, he has a lot more movement. And I don't have a way yet to move the legs of my other puppets anyway. So he can move around, and it's not just me floating him around like I would have to do with the other puppets. And he can kind of like dance around a little bit, not a ton, but he can be very articulate with his arms. So that is Tread. You can see his gauges and buttons and things like that. And these things, one of them broke off when I was making one of my videos. They're like little clamps. It's a little patch where he was repaired. That's Tread.
What is this pink inside me? Look at you, it is blinding.
And this is the fourth puppet that I made, Crux. She's a bit more cyberpunk in feel than the others. The others I think of as more 1950s sci-fi, and she feels way more 1980s. So her head is made in the same way as the other puppets. It's the same bag clip. It's just buried a bit more than some of the other ones. Yeah, the metal nuts for eyes, the wire inside. She's made with gray clay, so her head actually isn't really painted except for the bronze right there. Some of the wiring that's inside of her head comes out here and creates a kind of just bar for me to tie hair onto, because I wanted her to have hair. And originally I was just gonna have wire as the hair, but the wire was too thick and it just wasn't gonna fall right and get the right look that I wanted. It was just gonna kind of be all over the place up here, and so I ended up using yarn, and then I twisted some wire into the yarn And here's a little wire with some, like, a light bulb on it. And to get all the wire, I broke apart some electronics. So originally I was going to sculpt her body like I sculpted the others, but she was looking so cyberpunk that I wanted to just go with it. And so I was breaking apart electronics for this wire, and so I had these circuit boards left over. And so I just broke apart some circuit boards and just tied them together with wire. There's the back of her. I ended up using wire for the arms, or electric wire rather than, you know, metal wire, and then I sculpted the hands. Just try to make them look cyberpunk. The arm rod is actually inserted into the hand, where the other ones are tied around the wrist. So this one is built in. So with Crux, I ended up with a robot that, or a puppet robot that also moves differently than my first two, because of the arms being thick and that they can bend in any direction at the same time, and that the circuit board body is so light that that she kind of has this like sway to her, where she feels like she can just really move around in space and move at any angle, which I think gives her this kind of ethereal feel. But yeah, that's Crux.
There is a darkness in me.
So Darkness was built for my latest video before filming this, which is Darkness Dances, which is about the darkness inside all of us, but that it's maybe not always super scary. And so I wanted to personify darkness, and at first I thought I was just going to use a black garbage bag and have it move around, and that was darkness. But the more I started thinking about it, the more I wanted to make a separate puppet that represented darkness. So I never made or used a puppet like this, so Darkness took a lot of experimentation to figure out how he moved. Like, I've a lot of footage of me moving him in different ways that just didn't look right. And I'm actually going to take him apart, but before I take him apart, I want to show you just, his head is made of polymer clay, and it's gray clay, so part of it's painted and part of it's not. And inside is a torn up paper towel roll. So basically what I'm doing is this, where these are his arms, and then I move him around. That lets me give him little arms. And then sometimes I kind of just make him more like ominous and like he's just this shadowy ghost figure moving around. Because in the video I go back and forth between him being kind of this ominous presence and this being this super silly dancing creature. All right, so let me take him apart for you. So this is actually a pin. Like, it has a pin on the back that I baked into the clay. So I'm gonna undo the pin and unpin it. So this is a kind of a nice pin, because I had some pin backs for another project I was doing. Yeah, so what I did is I sculpted this and I baked it, and then I sculpted the pin into it and baked that again. So in theory, I can pin this to anything. So I'm just gonna pin it to my shirt. Now Darkness is on my shirt. So this is an old shirt that never quite fit, and I was experimenting with some different shirts that I had laying around. This shirt just had a really neat material that was kind of, I thought would come up on film a bit as being like shiny, like it has a sheen to it. And this is all being held together by a ponytail band. So I'm gonna take that off. And just use it. All right, so this is just the shirt. And then inside, I took this is packing paper, and then Scotch tape, just all over the place, giving it like a ball so that I can give him kind of a head, so that I'm basically doing this the whole time. And that's Darkness. Thanks for hanging out and meeting my puppets. Darkness seems to really think that you'd like this next video. But I hope you were inspired and that this brightened your day. And I'll see you next time.